The cafe was silent, all eyes fixed on the pregnant woman, drenched, trembling, clutching her belly as a glass of water dripped from her hair. The waiter stood frozen, his face pale as he realized what he had just done. From outside, the thunderous roar of motorcycles echoed closer, one after another, until the street shook. In seconds, dozens of bikers in black leather jackets surrounded the cafe, engines rumbling like a warning. The door flew open. A towering man with tattoos, a beard, and eyes like a storm stepped inside. He looked at his wife, then at the waiter. "Who did this?" he asked, voice calm, too calm. Nobody breathed. But what happened next would silence not only the cafe, but the entire town, because this story wasn't about revenge. It was about forgiveness, love, and how one act of kindness can change everything. Rain poured outside the small-town cafe Marlin's Diner, a place where locals came for warmth and gossip. Inside, Maya, 7 months pregnant, sat alone at a corner table. Her husband, Ryder, was out of town with his biker club on a charity ride for orphan kids. Maya wasn't the typical biker's wife people imagined. She was gentle, kind, and soft-spoken, the sort of woman who smiled even when life got hard. But lately, life had been hard. Money was tight, Ryder was gone most of the time, and the stress of pregnancy weighed heavy. Still, she came to the diner every morning. It reminded her of simpler times, before the tattoos, before the fear people had of bikers. Today, though, things were different. The new waiter, Evan, was struggling. It was his first week on the job. He was 22, broke, and angry at the world, trying to survive after his father had kicked him out. When Maya smiled at him and said softly, "Could I get a decaf tea, please?" he barely nodded. He'd been yelled at by his boss, tipped poorly by customers, and was one mistake away from being fired. Minutes later, as he rushed past her table, another customer bumped into him, spilling coffee all over his tray. Hot liquid burned his arm, and in a fit of frustration, he spun around and his hand jerked, sending the glass of cold water straight into Maya's face. The cafe went silent. Everyone gasped. Maya froze, the cold shocking her body. Her hands instinctively covered her belly. Evan's eyes widened. I didn't mean. But Maya's body trembled. The sudden stress made her wince in pain. She stood, unsteady, clutching her stomach. "Someone help," she whispered, before collapsing to her knees. Evan panicked. The manager rushed over. An ambulance was called. And in that chaos, Evan's heart pounded with guilt so fierce, it made him sick. She was taken to the hospital. The news spread through town like wildfire. A young pregnant woman was hurt at Marlin's Diner. By the time the bikers heard, Ryder was already on his way back. And he wasn't coming alone. The next morning, the cafe owner unlocked the doors only to see a long line of bikes parked outside. The ground vibrated as riders in black jackets stood silently, their patch reading, "Iron Faith Brotherhood." Ryder walked in first. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with eyes that carried both fury and pain. The cafe went quiet as he scanned the room. "Who's Evan?" he said. The young waiter stepped forward, trembling. He couldn't even meet Ryder's eyes. I'm sorry, sir. I swear I didn't mean to." Ryder grabbed him by the collar. Chairs scraped. People gasped. But then, instead of punching him, Ryder looked into his face and saw something: fear, guilt, and tears. "Where's my wife?" Ryder asked quietly. Evan's lips quivered. "The hospital said she and the baby are okay." "I didn't mean to." Ryder let go. He stepped back, his eyes softening for a moment. "She's fine?" Evan nodded, crying. "Yes. I'm so sorry. I'd give anything to undo what I did." The bikers behind Ryder tensed, waiting for his signal, but Ryder raised his hand. "No one touches him," he said. "Let's hear him out." Everyone stared in disbelief. Ryder sat down, motioning for Evan to sit, too. The young man did, confused and afraid. Then Ryder said something no one expected. "You know, I was just like you once. Angry. Broke. I worked in a place like this, and I made mistakes. But one man forgave me. He gave me a second chance. That's why I started this club, not for power, not for fear. For faith. Evan's tears fell freely. I didn't mean to hurt her, he whispered. Please tell her that. Ryder nodded. You'll tell her yourself. Dove the turning point. 2 days later, Evan walked into the hospital room carrying flowers. Maya sat up in bed, her belly rising gently beneath the blanket. Ryder was beside her, holding her hand. Evan froze at the door. I'm sorry, he said, voice breaking. I don't expect forgiveness. Maya smiled softly. It was an accident. You didn't hurt me, you just scared me. Tears filled Evan's eyes. He handed her the flowers and turned to leave. But Ryder stood up and stopped him. You need a job that gives you peace, Ryder said. We run a garage, honest work, good pay. You in? Evan blinked. You'd hire me, after all this? Ryder nodded. Everyone deserves one chance to be better. Red Heart, the final scene. Months later, the cafe was busy again. Maya came in holding a baby, their daughter, Hope. Evan, now in the biker club's mechanic uniform, smiled from behind the counter. He handed Maya a cup of tea. Decaf, right? She laughed. You remembered. Outside, Ryder's bike gleamed in the sunlight. He held his baby, kissed his wife, and looked back at Evan, who was now smiling, truly smiling for the first time in years. Sometimes, Ryder said, life throws water in your face, but that's how it washes away the old you. The engines roared again, and the screen faded to black, leaving viewers with a tear, a smile, and a message they'd never forget.